Okay, so I got QuickBooks Online here, and I would like to talk to you about a new feature that was added in June 2016 called AutoAdd for the bank rules. Just to provide some context here, I'm going to create a regular bank rule. I'm going to go to Transactions here on the left, then I'm going to click on Banking. And this is a brand new QuickBooks file I set up. Let me just show you real quick. I'm going to go to Vendors and show you I really don't have any vendors set up at all here. So I'm sort of starting from scratch. So I'm going to go to Transactions, Banking, and I've connected a few of my credit cards and a few of my banks. And I just want to click on one of these and show you how bank rules work. So for example, you see all these expenditures here. There's a lot of vendors that are in common. Like you can see a whole bunch of Amazon and a whole bunch of Amazon here. Now you can see by the dollar values, we have quite a big range. Some 20, 16, 30, $100, that sort of thing. So I can create a rule and I'll just show you real quick. Here where it says update, I'm going to click the drop down and I'm going to click on manage rules. And what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and tell QuickBooks that, if Amazon comes in, automatically classify it to whatever it's supposed to go. So I'm going to click on new rule, and then we're going to call this Amazon. And then it says here, when transaction meets all of these conditions, and I can also choose any, so I can actually create multiple conditions if I wanted to, but I'll just do a single condition. Says, look, if the bank text contains the word Amazon, and it's Amazon is one of those things, there may not be a lot of other companies with the word Amazon in it. So I'm pretty confident that if the vendor name it's Amazon, go ahead and automatically classify it as the payee Amazon. So I'm gonna go ahead and create the payee Amazon Corp, for example, and then I'm gonna go ahead and add that as a vendor. And then for categories, I'll put that under office supplies. Okay. This one happens not to be in my QuickBooks file, so I went ahead and just created it. But you could obviously pick any account that's already in your chart of accounts. So down here, there's a little checkbox here that says automatically add to my books. We'll dive deep into that little tiny feature in a second. For now, we'll just do what you're seeing here on the screen, which is won't automatically add, but create the rule itself based on the name. So based on Amazon, all transactions will be automatically named to Amazon Corp, and the category will be office supplies. So I'm going to go ahead and click on save, and then I'll click back to credit cards. That way I'm sort of back into the original screen. And now you're going to see that all of these Amazon transactions, whether it was Amazon Marketplace or Amazon.com, were automatically set up by the rules. Okay, that's pretty self-explanatory, right? Now, let's say, for example, that Amazon Marketplace, it's one type of expenditure, and Amazon.com happens to be a different type of expenditure. So I could actually create multiple rules that behave different based on the names, and then quite possibly I don't want this to be renamed by the rule and then require me to accept it. I want it to automatically go in. So just to go back to that original rule that we created, by doing that rule, this has been automatically classified for me, but it has not been posted or entered into the register. So I actually have to approve these. So I can approve these by selecting on maybe a couple of them like this, and then click on batch actions accept. That's one way for me to approve them. The other way for me to approve them is to click on the recognize button here on the top. It says recognize 10, and I'll click on that recognize, and then it will filter and just show those. And then I could click on select all here, then batch actions, and then accept. So those are sort of the ways we traditionally work with rules. QuickBooks will detect the name, it will suggest the vendor, will suggest the account, but I still have to push a button. So I still have to select them all and push a button. So what I'll show you is this new feature they added where things automatically get added to the register. I don't even have to approve them. So let me go back here to manage rules, and then I'm going to click on edit. And then I'll say, look, if the bank text contains Amazon.com, right? So I'm being very specific, not just the word Amazon, Amazon.com, automatically classified. And then basically what will happen is the other rule will kick into effect, but it won't automatically classify. So I'm going to go ahead and click on save. Okay, so and then the way I know these are automatically classified is I get this little tiny icon there where it says auto add, and that was the new feature that I'm featuring here. So what I'll also do is I'm going to go ahead and click on actions and click on copy. So I'm going to duplicate the rule, and I'll call this one just Amazon, and then this one I'll do it just with the word Amazon. Okay, and then for this one I won't automatically add. Okay, so I won't automatically add this one. So I'll remove this. Whoops, I'll remove that one automatically add. That way we have two rules. One, if it's got the word Amazon, change it for me. That way I have to accept it. And the other one, if it says Amazon.com, automatically add. So I'm going to go ahead and click on save. Oh, I'll make sure that I change the name here. And I'll put here, don't auto add or something. I just have to make sure that the two rules have different names. So click on save. So now I got the two rules. Now these two rules are in order, right? So this is going to apply the Amazon.com rule first, and then it'll apply the Amazon rule afterwards. So I'm going to go ahead and click on bank and credit cards to go back to it. And then you will notice that all of my Amazon.com went away. Okay, the only ones are here are the Amazon without the .com, and these are changed by the rules, but these have not been posted into the books yet. These I still have to select here, which I could just select them in a group like this, and I have to accept them. But now let's see the effects of this. How does this really change or affect the dynamic of how we do work? When we click up here, it says in QuickBooks, which is the list of transactions that were accepted with the bank, I actually get to see the rules, and I get to see, look, these were all the Amazon transactions that came in. Some of them were using the Amazon rule. Some of them were using the Amazon do not auto add rule. Okay, I could actually, if for whatever reason the auto add didn't go in correctly, I could click on the filter button here on the top, and I can say, look, use an auto add rule, so only show me the ones that were automatically added. And then I'll click on apply, and then it's going to narrow down all the ones that were automatically added. And if I wanted to basically say, look at those, I didn't mean for those to be automatically added, I can select them all and click undo. And by selecting them all and clicking undo, we're going to see now they go back into the review tab. Okay, now what's interesting about these is that these were undone. So basically, QuickBooks took the next available rule, which is the Amazon rule, and automatically renamed this by the rule. If I actually go back here, and I'm going to go to Manage Rules, and then I'll delete this rule. That way, the Amazon.com automated rule doesn't come into effect either. And then I'll delete this one to the Amazon.corp rule, and I hit yes. And I'll go back to my bank and credit cards. You're going to see a slightly different behavior. So now you're going to see QuickBooks say, you know what? I am suggesting that you do this, but not based on a specific rule. This is just based on history. So you really get to see sort of the dynamic of how QuickBooks behaves here. I can also accept these four here, and I can click on Batch Actions, Accept. And I can do the same thing, go back into the In QuickBooks tab, and then I can see that some of these were added by the rules, and then some of these were accepted, but no rule was applied. But QuickBooks did suggest how to do that. So let's do a couple of more, because this stuff gets a little bit confusing, just because there are sort of kind of two type of rules that come in here. There is the rule that we explicitly tell QuickBooks how to behave. There's the rule that we tell QuickBooks how to behave and also automatically add, so I don't have to accept it. And then there's sort of rules are happening behind the scenes where QuickBooks is sort of learning as we go. Okay, so I'll give you one of these examples here. For example, Chevron. I'm going to just select this one, no rule. So I'm just going to type here Chevron, and I'll create the vendor, and I click on save. And then I'll put this into automobile expense. Right? I'll just create an account here real quick. So I'll put this on the auto expense, and then I'll click on add. Okay, now I haven't created any rules at all, but what happens is QuickBooks creates this sort of rule behind the scenes that says, look, it looks like you have another Chevron expense, and I should make it auto expense. I notice that there's the word rule is not here, so there's no rules involved. This is QuickBooks trying to learn from what you're doing. Okay, now this is because of the past behavior. I can override this behavior simply by going back into manage rules, and then I can again create my own rule if I want to, right? So I can do my new rule, and I can put chevron, and then I'll also type the word chevron here. Again, this is the name of the rule for organizational purposes, and this is the text that is searching within the bank. And then I can say rename this to chevron, but instead of making it auto expense, I'll create another expense just to show you called fuel expense. And I know those may be somehow the same category, but I'm doing it so you can see them in contrast how that will work. So again, these are chevron, fuel expense, and I am not gonna set up these to be automatically added. But I will put here in the memo set up by rules, and then I'll click on save. And now what you're going to notice is I'm going to go back into my bank and credit cards. You're going to see that before my chevron was automatically classified to automobile expense because it was based on past behavior. But I can actually, through rules, completely override that behavior and the next one kick in. And again, I have to actually click on add to accept this, or I have to click on the checkbox, and then up here where it says batch actions, click on accept. Like that, I actually have to take that task. But if I actually go up back into my rule, go to manage rules, and then I'll click on chevron, and then edit, and then tell it, listen, I really don't want you to ask. Chevron is pretty obvious. There never is going to be another vendor with the name Chevron. I'm going to go ahead and click on automatically add to my books. Now what I'll do is just to have a just much better way for me to identify it, I'm going to type here auto-add. Right? So I'm just going to use specific wording that I wouldn't use under any other circumstance. I'll put there auto-add, and then I click on save. And then when I go back into my bank and credit cards, I will notice that Chevron is no longer here. See, it goes from B to C, and then Chevron's no longer here. And if I go into the register itself, there's a little link here that says go to register. I can see all the transactions that were added into my register. This is looking at the actual bank register, and here it is. Okay, here it is. And then you see that little icon follows me, right? So that little tiny icon that's there is following and letting me know that it was automatically added to the bank rule. Now, how do I find transactions that were automatically added through bank rules? So let me show you that. But before, let me add a couple of more. That way we have a couple more to search. So let's look for another vendor that kind of repeats itself quite a bit. Okay, so we got this ExxonMobil ones. Great example for this one. So let me go ahead and create the rule. Go to manage rule. I can just copy this one. So sometimes it's easier to just copy an existing rule. So I'm going to click on copy, and then I'll just change this to Exxon, and then I'll put here Exxon. Again, Exxon is probably something that's not going to be confused with some other vendor. So that's one of the rules that I will be pretty comfortable with doing the auto add. And also I'll do automatically add to my books. Click on save. Okay, then my rule is there. Perfect. I'll go back to my banks and credit cards. And then if you notice that little tab that is hit pretty quick, those ExxonMobil stuff was added automatically. Again, I can verify that it was added by clicking on the In QuickBooks tab, and I can see that in here really well. I see right there Exxon, and I can see they were automatically added by the rules. Okay, I can also go into my check register, and I can see that all my Exxons were added by the rules here. Here on the filter, on the top left, on the register, I can actually click on reconcile status, and I can put here cleared and click apply. And then basically everything that was added to the bank will show clear. Now, what I don't get to see here is to only see things that were added by the rules, or I only get to see things that were automatically added or not automatically added. So I really don't get the power of that filter, at least not yet. This is June of 2016. At least not yet. I suspect that may possibly come in at some point, because that would actually be a kind of an interesting thing. However, if you did notice, I put the word auto-add in the memo, or just type the word auto and hit apply, and then we're going to see down here on the memo everything that had the memo auto add in there. So that's kind of a quick trick right now, just because we don't have the power even here in the gearbox. We really can't just show those that were automatically added. So that's kind of an interesting way of sort of seeing how to filter and just look for those particular transactions. Now, another way to search for transactions that were automatically added is because of that memo field. I could just search AutoAdd here up in the search field, or I could go into down here where it says Advanced Search, and I can click on Search All Transactions line, and then I can click on Memo, and then I can put Contains, and I'll just type literally what I had put on that memo field for the automatically added. Again, just as long as you use something in the memo that's recognizable, that wouldn't be confused with anything else, that would be great. And I click on search, and that would show me all the transactions were automatically added, right? So basically through the memo, we can manipulate that as well. Now, as we go back into our banking menu here, we can actually click on the In QuickBooks tab, and we can swap across all of our multiple bank accounts or credit card accounts, and we can see how these auto rules actually apply throughout every single one of our accounts. So we don't necessarily have to create a rule for each specific account. Actually, when the rules are created by default, they affect multiple accounts. However, there are situations where maybe when you pay something out of one credit card, it's one category, but if it's a different user, just because of the nature of what that credit card user does, or a different credit card, a different bank account, the category could be different. So let me show you how that will work. So for example, we'll see a category here, see a category that we could potentially see somewhere else. So we see here Intuit QuickBooks, right? So let's say I'm paying that amount into a QuickBooks. I'm going to assume that in the other credit cards that Intuit QuickBooks shows up again, just to kind of guess. So we'll see. So we'll copy this over, then I'm going to come up here and go into Manage Rules, and then I'll create a new rule. We'll call it Intuit QuickBooks 1. I'll call this Intuit QuickBooks 1. And it says, look, at the bank text says the word, let's just put Intuit. Go ahead and we'll create the vendor here, go Intuit, and then we'll make this office supplies, for example. Go Intuit here again. Okay, office supplies, for example. However, I'm going to say specifically, not every single bank account. It's only going to affect, let's say, for example, this credit card user and that credit card user. That way, if that transaction comes out of Joe or Mark's credit card, that rule won't apply. And I'm going to go ahead and put here automatically add, and like always, I'm going to put a memo that I could search later on. So I'm going to click on save, and then when I look into the performance of that particular rule, we're going to see what happens. I'm going to go back, bank and credit cards, and then I'm going to click on in QuickBooks. And then we notice here under Joe's credit card, we don't see any Intuit here. Under Mark's credit card, no Intuit. Under Steve's credit card, yep. So notice that on Steve's credit card, we had a whole bunch of transactions under Intuit QuickBooks, and these were automatically added. Okay. And let me look at the other credit card as well. The fourth one here. Okay, we'll see no credit card there, no Intuit QuickBooks there. However, we're going to go ahead and go back into our Manage Rules, and then I'll duplicate this rule here. I'm going to do copy, and then we'll call this one Intuit QuickBooks 2, and then we'll select the other bank account. So we'll say not for these two, but for everything else. Okay, that's not going to be office supplies. Let's say, for example, that'll be something else called software expense. Okay, so that's really neat, on this issue of automatically creating rules, that because I can actually choose based on the bank account, and I could even do it based on a specific dollar amount. Like I said, look, if it's under a certain dollar amount, make it this. For example, if I click on Add Lines, and I can say if the amount in this case is greater than $100, then this rule will apply. But maybe if the amount is under $100, the rule won't apply, and I would have to manually, obviously, select that. I'll delete that just for now, and then I click on save. I just want to check if the effect of that rule affected the other two accounts. So we'll go back to bank and credit cards, and then we'll click on in QuickBooks, and then we'll see that there it is. See the rule Intuit QuickBooks 2. played a role here. So that's kind of a interesting thing in how we can, because of the source bank account, we can choose which rule will be applied, and we can say for this account automatically add, for this account don't automatically add, so I can review it first. And what's nice about this in QuickBooks screen as well is I can actually click on the rule itself, and it will take me to go edit the rule, like if I wanted to edit the rule. So that's one of the real neat things about it. Or I can click on the link here which says the expense transaction. I can click on that and it will take me to the specific transaction, which at that point I could modify, add an attachment, delete if I wanted to, whatever. So I will have sort of multiple options there.